Dear Adobe, what are you doing? We've been using Lightroom since the very first version when it came out in 2007.
I've been using Photoshop since around 1998 to process my pictures, like 25 years of this.
Yeah, we've been ride or die. We've been with you for a long time, and not only that, we've written 6 books about Lightroom and Photoshop to teach people how to use Lightroom and Photoshop. In fact, we have a new one coming out soon, so it's not advantageous for us at all to complain, because we're going to try to sell a book about how to use Lightroom, but we're really upset, and that's because you're doing things that are making it harder to work as a creative. You're doing things that are anti-photographer, and we're the people who helped build your software and support it. And not only that, you're being sued by the government for not even being fair with how you treat consumers. We're going to talk about all of that on this episode of the Picture This Photography podcast, and even give some suggestions on what we think Adobe could do to make nice with creatives. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace, for making great websites possible.
Whenever you need any sort of web presence, start at squarespace.com/Chelsea. That gets you a free trial, so you can see how easy it is to set up. You can get things like a custom domain. It's so much better than social media, which is controlled and owned by somebody else. If anything we've learned in the last few years, we need to create and own our own content, and squarespace.com/Chelsea is the best way to do that. Get a custom domain, take appointments from clients, sell products on your store. When you love it, the coupon code Chelsea will save you 10%. Thanks for sponsoring us, Squarespace.
All right, stop hyping up Squarespace. I want to complain about Adobe.
Okay.
Because I feel like the proverbial frog in boiling water, because this has been happening slowly enough that I wasn't really upset, or I was upset, but I thought, oh, change happens. And I think that the change started to happen in 2013 when they switched to a subscription model.
Well, let's go farther back and just talk historically how software works. Like, I bought Lightroom 1 in 2007 to help manage my photos. And then I paid for the upgrade to Lightroom 2. You know why? Because Adobe made Lightroom version 2 and they added a bunch of new features and improvements that motivated me to pull out my wallet and buy the next update. They did this again and again through Lightroom 6, adding new features that were exciting enough for me to actively choose to spend additional money to get that new version. Then in 2013, they decided they would do something different. Now they made it mandatory that you had to pay them every year, every month, to get what they called continuous updates. And they said this was going to be good for us because it would allow them to give us more features, to work around the clock, making each of their products better and better and better. That is not the result we've seen. Now it's up to me to actively cancel my subscription if I don't want to continuously pay for any upgrades. And guess what? They make that as difficult as possible. And in fact, that's why the US government, the FTC, is suing them.
Yeah, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is in place to make sure that consumers aren't being taken advantage of by companies. And so they contacted Adobe and told them, like, you have hidden fees that you're not telling people about unless they're hovering over little things. Like, the fees are in small prints. It's way too difficult for people to cancel their subscriptions. And so there's a court case against them. Now, Adobe did come out and say that they don't agree. They think it's easy to cancel, and they think that the subscription model is better for their customers.
I can personally testify here because I've had to cancel a couple of Adobe subscriptions, and they made it a total pain. While you can sign up totally automatically, at least at the time, I had to type in a chat window with Adobe customer support to remove a subscription, and they delayed it. It took like a long time where I had to stay online with them, constantly fighting just to cancel a subscription. And this is a common tactic to make it difficult to cancel your subscription, so you will keep paying for software that you aren't using. And that is not a model that works back in the day when you had to pay for each version. Because if you did nothing, you didn't have to pay anything. If you stopped using software, you would never get charged again. But with the subscription model, you stop using software, you keep paying until you can set aside sometimes more than an hour of time to fight with customer service to get out of a subscription.
Yeah, I think that the only people that the subscription model is benefiting is Adobe.
And people who own Adobe stock, right?
Yeah, definitely the shareholders, that's who they're serving. But when I found an old Reddit thread, an AMA, with their chief strategy officer, Scott Belsky, he talked about how no investor would want to be with a software company that had not assigned the subscription model, because it's just a lot more profits and it's consistent profits. You're not waiting for some new features to come out and then just get this burst of sales. You're having people buy your stuff all the time, even if you're not innovating things. So Adobe has innovated things, but maybe we didn't want to just be paying for it all the time, even if we didn't want those features.
Back when Adobe was releasing Lightroom 4, version 5, version 6, they had to add new compelling features every time to get you to upgrade. Since then, a lot of features have just remained broken. Like Lightroom Classic has facial recognition, which could be extremely useful. Like I have thousands of pictures of you in there, and it would be nice if I could use facial recognition to track every picture of you or my daughter or my dog. This technology exists. Facebook can tag faces automatically. In my Apple photo storage, it tags all the faces automatically. But you can't do that very well at all in Lightroom Classic. It literally will tag a picture of a monkey as Chelsea.
Well, I saw that when I was editing the book. You put in my name and it tagged me as a monkey, and look.
Because that's how primitive it is. Even though that technology is widespread right now, Adobe has not bothered to update that. There's so many broken features. Like look at the print, the map, or the books modules in Lightroom Classic. They have not been updated in like a decade, and they all suck. And the web module is still in there too, and that is completely useless. File management is a nightmare. Have you tried relinking stuff to the network attached storage where we store all of our files?
Yeah, it's always dropping.
It doesn't reconnect automatically. If you dare to move a folder within Explorer or Finder, Lightroom can't find it and can't automatically relink it. You have to pick a specific image and then scroll yourself to find the specific folder and the file within that folder just to relink it. A process that could be automated with just not that much code. These are really basic features that Lightroom has not fixed ever. You still can't airdrop directly from Lightroom. You have to like export a JPEG and then go into Explorer. So many things are broken and will probably never be fixed because it's not going to cost them anything if they don't fix it.
Well, yeah, so the complaint
because we're forced to pay anyway.
Right, the complaint isn't that the software is not perfect, it's that they're putting in place a subscription model and saying it's better for us because they get to give us more features more regularly, but then they're not giving us the things we want.
Yeah.
I did see in that same AMA, they talked, the product manager talked about giving us what we needed instead of what we thought we want or something like that, and I was like, who are you? Do you even talk to us? Do you even know what photographers want? Yeah, they're doing some things that are upsetting to the artists.
Absolutely. Let's talk about AI, because Adobe has patted themselves on the back for being the most photographer-friendly generative AI system out there, but I actually think they've been the worst for photographers, the coldest to the community that helped build them up.
Well, my experience with it is that we used to do stock photography, and one of the stock sites that we used was called Fotolia. We would upload our pictures, and then every time someone wanted to use one of our pictures, they'd have to buy a license, and we would get paid.
We made literally dozens of dollars.
Yeah, we made so many dollars. But Adobe bought Fotolia, and when they did, they bought this huge database of photos that they used to train their AI. Now, no one asked me if I wanted pictures of me being used to train AI, but that's what they did because I opted into the terms of service and the agreement before AI existed, before photo generation existed. And
because it was the only way for you to make money at your job.
Yeah.
Who's going to sign out of that?
Well, I feel like a lot of these big tech companies are exploiting the fact that AI technology is so new that we don't have laws to prevent companies from screwing us over yet. And so it's just like...
Yeah, because the terms of service say something vague like we need to be able to store and process your image.
Yeah.
And then they can just apply that to AI.
Well, they have been using that. They're like, oh, we need access to these photos to do these things. Yet you never gave me an option to opt out, Adobe. I would like to opt out, and I think a lot of photographers would, because I don't want to train your AI to replace me. Do you understand?
Anybody in a job, if you said, hey, would you mind if we just took the work that you're doing and trained a computer to completely replace you and eliminate your entire field?
It's happening a lot.
Would you sign up for that? No, Adobe says they actually paid the photographers. They are patting themselves on the back for being the ethical AI alternative because they didn't scrape public images from the web. But ask them, how much did they pay photographers?
They're not telling
How much
us.
did any individual photographer make? No, they say they paid them, but I can't pin down how much that was. And was it a fair amount?
And is it
How much would it have to be to eliminate an entire career?
Yeah, but also, is it one flat payment for opting your photo in?
Yeah.
Or are you getting a portion of a payment every time someone uses your photo to generate an image? That information is not available, and it should be. We need more transparency so we can protect artists and photographers. You're not doing that, and that is not fair to the people who are supporting you. I don't understand this. It's rude.
So they used our pictures in the stock photography industry without our explicit permission to build generative AI. So now in Lightroom or Photoshop, you can circle something, type some words, and it will generate a picture. You can generate an entire picture of any size or shape that you want by just typing a few words. Adobe actually marketed this using a skip the photoshoot marketing campaign. You know, the photo shoot where the photographers would get paid, the things photographers rely on to pay the rent. Skip that part. Designers, now you don't have to hire. All you can do, you can just pay us, Adobe. And what that means is it is a transfer of money from individuals, from small businesses that are photographers, over to a massive software-based corporation and their shareholders.
You know what this makes me so mad is because I know that these corporate bros, these are the people that have hand-stitched custom cars and a real Picasso hanging on their wall and an artisan-made walnut table that costs $30,000 in their dining room. In their personal lives, they're supporting the artist, and then they go into a company like this and they just gut the artists that are making them the money to support artists.
Yeah,
Like,
they put out a
what?
whole campaign saying you don't need individual artists. We've trained our robots off of their stuff.
Yeah, it just seems really predatory.
But they do know better. They
Yeah,
know
they know
there is
better.
value in human craftsmanship.
They do know that because Adobe was the one that founded the Content Authenticity Initiative in 2019 when they saw that content-aware fill would be making it difficult for people to differentiate like a real image versus a generated one. So they're aware of this. That's the initiative that's behind like Leica's content authenticity.
Oh yeah, and how's that going? How many cameras do you have that shoot CAI certified images?
Well, this is the difficult thing. When a company is exclusively profits driven, then you can come up with a good idea like that that's like moral and good for the people. But if it's not making money, it's kind of sinking. It's not really going anywhere. It's not like they're generative fill. So
Adobe created a problem for society, which is generative images.
Yeah.
And they also created what could be a solution, the Content Authenticity Initiative. They managed to actually publish the generative images, the problem, but the solution hasn't gone anywhere. That is not something that you and I can use today. It does not exist. But they didn't hold back the problem until the solution was ready. No, they just pushed the problem out right away because that's what makes them money.
yeah, but there's also other examples of them seemingly not caring about the artist because the Ansel Adams estate had beef with Adobe. Somebody had generated a photo based in Ansel Adams style, which is against, Adobe says it's against their stock like user agreement. You're not supposed to do that. But someone did, and they put up a picture and it was like, I don't know, like the Badlands in the style of Ansel Adams. I don't know the exact title. And then the Ansel Adams estate came along and found it and had to flag it and ask Adobe specifically to take it down. And Adobe's response was like, thanks for finding that. But I thought the Ansel Adams estate was smart. So they're like, why are you putting that burden on me? You should be going through your stock photos and making sure that they're not ripping off photographers, not making us make it a huge part of our job to go chasing down people stealing from us.
Wait, well, how does that make them a profit if they were to do
No,
that?
exactly. And I was wondering, do you think Adobe would have taken it down if someone bought it and they saw it? Like, at what point were they going to penalize the person doing something against their terms of service? It seems like not until an artist complained. And so it's just another example of them not caring about the people who are making them profits.
We'll be back in just one second because we're going to talk about privacy concerns. Like, people at Adobe can literally look at your pictures, even if they're stored locally, it seems. And we're going to offer some solutions because we want to give Adobe a path forward. We have a long relationship with them and we don't want to say goodbye just yet. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is a tool you use to build a public website with your own custom domain name. You control the colors, the fonts, the layout. Put your photography portfolio in there, your video reel, or advertise your business. Sell products, take appointments from clients, or just show off a personal project that you're working on. We each have several Squarespace websites that we use for different things because it's easy, fun, and inexpensive. So start today at squarespace.com/Chelsea. You get a free trial, no credit card required. When you love it, the coupon code Chelsea will save you 10%. Thanks, Squarespace.
Okay, so we've addressed some concerns with them, Adobe using our pictures without our consent really to make AI-generated pictures that they think should replace us. And then also, of course, the subscription model where they're forcing us to pay for so that we can be blessed with their updates that we're not really seeing. But also our other complaint is that they've given themselves permission to look at our pictures, to review them, to make sure that they're not inappropriate content, which on a surface level seems like a noble thing to do, except
They're always making themselves sound noble when they're doing crappy things.
it's kind of a slap in the face.
Adobe does host people's images
Yeah.
through Creative Cloud. And if you use any sort of generative fill, like remove a piece of dust, your image gets sent to their cloud. Now, Adobe has put a badge on themselves and said, hey, because we're hosting your images, we need to also police them and make sure that you're not using it for something inappropriate. So they seem to have an automated system that scans your images for something that might be inappropriate. And if it finds something inappropriate, it flags it for a human to review it. So if your image gets sent to the cloud, which can happen without you necessarily being conscious of it by just using generative AI,
Right.
and it is flagged by an automated system, which is less than 100% correct, then a human being can look at it. And that might include unreleased products. It could include new fashions that haven't been published yet.
It could be, like a boudoir shoot or something very personal and private to you or your client. And you don't want a stranger who knows where they are having the ability to screen capture that or take a picture of it or share it. That should be private information. And in fact, I think there's a lot of liability there. What if it's a product that is under NDA and someone leaks it and it's through Adobe? We don't know who has done it because first of all, we're not told when a human is reviewing our photos, and then we're not told who is reviewing our photos.
Yeah, there's no accountability on there. Even though they could definitely send you an email and say, hey, a human reviewed this photo and we found it to be fine. Sorry for the invasion of your privacy. Adobe doesn't provide accountability for themselves, even though that seems like the bare minimum. I also tested their screening algorithm by just using generative fill on totally benign images, like the cover of our Photoshop book. And it was flagged as being inappropriate. And that means, to me, it was probably also reviewed by a human being. But if a picture of a woman in a full dress on the beach can get flagged, then so many pictures could get flagged and thus reviewed by a human.
I don't think any human should be reviewing our photos. It's not necessary. But also, if you're going to do that, you should let me know that there's a human reviewing my photos and then assign a number to every person at your company responsible for that. Because if employee number 1127 leaks a product, it should be traced back to the person at your company.
They bury these things in the terms of service, which nobody reads. They also disguise it under terms like the Customer Experience Improvement Program, where your pictures can be used to train non-generative AI, like the selection tools for selecting the sky and stuff. So they're not clearly and explicitly labeling things, even though our concerns are very clear and very explicit. And no, they absolutely don't have to do this, as evidenced by the fact that Apple also hosts people's pictures and things like the Photos cloud storage. And they give you the option to encrypt it on their servers so that even Apple cannot possibly see your images. But they also assure you that they're not going to review or police your images. This is another tech company doing exactly the same thing in a much better way. Adobe can learn from them, but for some reason, they refuse to.
Yeah, I wonder if it also leaves them open to liability if they're missing things. Like, what is the promise here? What are they supposed to do? Okay, we've listed a lot of our complaints, but I do think there are things that Adobe could do to save face a little bit, actually genuinely make changes. I mean, they've addressed some of these complaints. What was one of them? I think like the AI using people's photos to make AI, and they waited a week and then they just released like a press release and they didn't do anything.
Yeah, they changed the phrasing a little bit, but continued doing exactly
the same thing.
Yeah.
No more lip service. I'd say that'd be the number one thing. It's an insult. It's insulting. I mean, I don't have a high media literacy, but I can see that saying something and not making a difference. It's actions. One of the actions could be that you actually fairly compensate the people that you're using their photos to train your AI. It's making you a lot of money. You're making a ton of money off of AI. Why not actually kick some of that back to the artists that are not only using your software, but buying the pictures and things like that?
Yeah, if you're going to use my pictures through your customer experience improvement program to train your AI, which they do, you'll make money from that. Why don't you give that money back to me? Keep track of it and give me half, because that was kind of the standard arrangement with stock photography.
Yeah, keep some of the history there of people being able to make money off of their images. I'd also say the other thing would be to let people opt out. Now, not everyone wants to be a part of that. Sometimes, stock images, you don't want your art being taken for someone else's art. If you respect the artist, you would let them not be a part of that.
I would love to open Lightroom or Photoshop and have it prompt me, do you want to use AI? Do you want to contribute to AI?
Mm-hmm.
And make those explicit, easy to understand options, rather than something that's sort of vaguely built into some features and never explicitly surfaced. Because we have concerns about AI, just about everybody in our industry does, and you need to be upfront about that.
Yeah, why isn't there someone there speaking on behalf of at least some of the artists? It's very odd.
Mm-hmm. If people want to contact Adobe, how should they do that?
Well, I did look up Scott Belsky, who is Adobe's Chief Strategy Officer and Executive Vice President of Design and Emerging Products. And he provided a page on his website where you could contact him and give him suggestions. So you can go to scottbelsky.com/contact-1. I'll put the link down in the description. And if you have ideas for Adobe on how they could make their products better or how they could better serve the people who are using them, you could write him. And he says on his website he'll have people review them. So if enough of us have similar complaints, they may actually address them.
I would also suggest writing a comment on this video, because somebody from Adobe has to watch this, that poor person, and reach out to Adobe on social media. Tag them on whatever your biggest social media is and write your concerns and complaints.
My last question would be, if this doesn't get worked out or if it gets worse, what software are you using that you guys like to edit pictures? Because we've been with Adobe for a long time, and I don't know, what else is out there? What should we consider?
Yeah, after 25 years, I think it's time for me to switch.
Really? You're not going to even give them a chance?
Okay, well, it's at least time for me to start to find alternatives.
Yeah, and maybe hold off on writing another book.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for watching the Picture This Photography podcast and for supporting our channel. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel or a playlist that you're interested in. And thank you to Squarespace for supporting this podcast for 10 years. And also for supporting photographers by creating a nice space for us to host our pictures, our galleries, our stores, our client galleries. If you want your very own Squarespace, go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and you can use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. That's CHELSEA. Thanks.
Bye.